Tonight we're going to be covering Chapter 23, which covers pregnancy, growth, and development. So we're going to pick up where the zygote forms, talk about the 38 weeks that are in utero, and then we'll talk about what happens afterwards. So as humans grow, they develop and age, and there's two definitions here. One's for growth, which is an increase in size, and the other's for development. And these are phases. And you have a prenatal phase, which we'll be spending quite a bit of time talking about, from fertilization to birth. And then you have the postnatal phase, which is from birth to death. All right, conception is when the secondary oocyte and the sperm unite or fertilized. Fertilization takes place in the uterine tube. Remember, the secondary oocyte is released from the ovary, okay, and from the ovary it travels up the infundibulum into the uterine tubes, and then the sperm, which was released in the vaginal canal, travels through the cervix, up the uterus. Hopefully it picks the right uterine tube or the correct uterine tube. And if fertilization occurs, it occurs somewhere in this area here. After, even though 200 to 600 million sperm are released, only a few hundred actually will arrive at the egg or the secondary oocyte. And that's what this picture is showing. All right. Now, here's a picture of fertilization. And even though there's only a couple hundred sperm, they're trying to penetrate the secondary oocyte. And to do this, they need their acrosomes containing enzymes. So these are the little caps on top of the nucleus. And they're all releasing enzymes. And these enzymes are penetrating the corona radiata and the zona pellucida. Okay, and then once the egg, or once the sperm enters, the secondary oocyte undergoes meiosis II, producing a tiny egg. And now the sperm and egg will form a zygote. The polar body will be discarded or reabsorbed by the body. Pregnancy and the postnatal period. Pregnancy, one is not pregnant until the offspring is developing in the uterus. Let me go back here. Oh, nope, that's not it. Here we go. Well, one more. I'm going to go back here. Remember, fertilization takes place in the uterine tube. However, should the zygote embed in that, you would have an ectopic pregnancy. So it takes another week or so, about a week, 7 days, for the fertilized egg or zygote to travel and embed in the uterine lining. Remember, the uterus is primed, a thickening of the endometrium. It's primed for the fertilized egg to implant. Okay. Pregnancy usually lasts about 38 weeks, which is about 3 trimesters or 9 months. And these 9 months can be divided into a period of cleavage, and of course cleavage means to split, the embryonic stage and the fetal stage. Again, cleavage just means rapid division, cell division. So you go from the fertilized egg, you get 2 cells, and then you get a whole ball of cells. And each individual cell is called a blastomere. Okay, again, the zygote is a fertilized egg. And this fertilized egg becomes a morella, which is a ball of cells. And inside this ball of cells, which we look down here, you'll have a blastocyst. And again, this is the hollow ball of cells, and inside is the stem cells. So if we're speaking about embryonic stem cells, they would come from right in here. Now the blastocyst has the inner cell mass. Okay, this whole thing is the blastocyst, this whole ball of cells. The inner mass is the stem cells, and this will give rise to the embryo. Then you have the trophoblast. The trophoblast will kind of invade the endometrium. It will invade the endometrium, and this is going to help form the placenta. And the placenta is going to help nourish and remove waste. So it's very important for the developing fetus. Hormonal changes. Oh, I meant to change this before I started, but I didn't. There's no G here. The secretion of human chorionic gonadotropin hormone. This is what home pregnancy tests measure in your urine. This maintains the corpus luteum. This is the remnants, the follicular remnants after ovulation. And it's also going to inhibit follicle-stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. The corpus luteum, again, on the ovary is important because it secretes estrogens and testosterones. As does the placenta. So once the corpus luteum begins to die off after pregnancy, around the end of the first trimester, then the placental estrogens and progesterones take over. These are important because they're going to maintain the uterine lining and inhibit uterine contractions and enlarge the reproducing organs. Relaxants also produced by the corpus luteum. This is going to inhibit uterine contractions. Again, you don't want the uterus contracting to expel the egg. And it's going to relax the pelvic ligaments. This is going to become very important during pregnancy, or not during pregnancy, during labor and delivery. It's going to help stretch the pelvic brim. Placental lactogen stimulates breast development. Aldosterone is going to promote sodium retention, and parathyroid hormone is going to help maintain calcium concentrations. Now these sodium and calcium are important because, again, to the last bullet here, you need adequate nutrition. So you need sufficient vitamins and minerals, which are calcium and sodium are. Other things, as the uterus grows, it's going to disrupt abdominal organs, so maybe disrupt eating. Also, develop heartburn. Remember, heartburn is gastric acid moving into the esophagus, and increase urinary frequency. The uterus sits atop of the bladder, so there will be more pressure on the bladder. And also, you need more oxygen, and more waste is excreted, so you need more blood volume, cardiac output, and breathing rate. So everything changes when you're pregnant. Okay, the embryonic stage begins the 2nd week through the 8th week. So through 8 weeks, you have the 8th week, you have an embryo. During this time, the placenta forms. You get some internal and external organs and external structures appearing. So let's talk about the embryonic stage. Again, this is to about week 8. Some of the structures, the chorion, and the chorion is this structure here. This is going to form the chorionic villi. This is going to help form the placenta and increase nutrient exchange. The amnion is this space here. The amnion is providing a space for the amniotic fluid. Again, that's going to help cushion and protect the baby. The yolk sac contains stem cells. Parts of it are going to help form the umbilical cord. You'll have the placenta. This here will come and form the placenta. And again, very important for the fetus and for, again, nutrient exchange and waste removal. And then the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is going to connect the developing fetus to the placenta. Also, by the end of the second week, you have your 3 primary germ layers. It's called gastrula, and your germ layers are the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. Notice what happens during the embryonic period. Early in the embryonic period, again, you start to see more of the embryo. You get to see a clearer amniotic cavity. Structures start to look like the umbilical cord, and this starts to become a placenta. Now, toward the end of the embryonic fluid, you have the embryo of the embryonic period, amniotic fluid, the umbilical cord, and then you have the placenta, which is made up of the chorion, and the chorion is from the embryo, and the endometrium, which is from the mother. Remember, the endometrium is the lining of the uterus. The chart at the top shows you when physical structures develop. You can see they develop fairly early: ears, eyes, central nervous system, cardiovascular system, the reproductive system. They all develop or begin developing during the embryonic period. A teratogen is something that disrupts embryonic development, and here are the most common, and you can see they would correlate to what potentially would be forming at that time. So the disruption would correlate. For example, thalidomide was given to ease morning sickness, and children of thalidomide had malformed limbs. All right, after week 8, you get the fetus, and rapid growth and very large head, short limbs. The fetal stage starts about the 9th week when the fetus itself is about 1 ounce, it's about 4 inches. By the end of the 16th week, the fetus is 8 inches long, about 6 ounces. By the end of the 20th week, it's about 12 inches long and weighs about 1 pound. And it's in this time frame here that women begin to become aware of flutterings, so they can feel the movement of the fetus. And the 21st through the 38th week, the baby, of course, or the fetus, gains considerable weight and grows tremendously, goes to 21 inches on average, and by the time it's ready to be born, it's 6 to 10 pounds. Now, the fetus does have some cardiovascular adaptations, meaning its cardiovascular system is different from the mother's. Because, of course, the oxygenation of the blood and the removal of waste is happening in the mother, from the mother, the placenta, and from the mother, not so much the fetus. Fetal blood has very high oxygen capacity. Remember, the fetus isn't breathing, it's bathed in amniotic fluid. The umbilical vein carries oxygen-rich and nutrient-rich blood from the placenta to the fetus. You have the ductus venosus. This bypasses the liver. You have the foramen ovale. This is a space between the 2 atria. and this is going to help bypass the lungs. And then you have the ductus arteriosus. This is a space between the pulmonary trunk and aorta, and again, this is going to help bypass the lungs because oxygenated blood is coming from the mom, not from the lungs of the fetus. And then you have the umbilical artery, and that's carrying carbon dioxide and waste to the placenta. And after 38 weeks, you have the birth process or parturition. So some hormones necessary for the birth process. You get a decline in progesterone levels. Progesterone inhibits uterine contractions. So uterine contractions are what it's needed for the birth process. So inhibiting progesterone is a good thing. Also, you start to synthesize prostaglandins. These also help to initiate labor. The stretching of the uterine tissue releases oxytocin, and oxytocin further stimulates uterine contractions. Now, again, birth is a positive feedback mechanism. So the more contractions you have, the more stretch, the more oxytocin. So it's a positive feedback cycle until the fetus is forced through the birth canal. And I believe that's what the next slide is showing you. And then after the baby passes through the birth canal, you get to give birth to the placenta. Yes, the placenta also has to be removed because it's no longer needed. All right. Milk production and secretion. So, of course, after you have the baby, the woman's body does have a way to nourish it, should you so choose. This is breast tissue in a non-pregnant woman. Notice here's the glandular structures. But once a woman becomes pregnant, here's the glands now, and notice all the secretions there. Milk secretion doesn't begin till after birth. The first milk is called colostrum. This has antibodies and also lower amounts of carbohydrates and fats. It takes a couple days for the mature milk to come in. Also, whoops, let me go back here. Prolactin is the main hormone responsible for the development of the mammillary glands. And breastfeeding is also a positive feedback. So the more the baby nurses, stimulates the nipple or the areola, the more impulses travel to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus causes the release of oxytocin. Oxytocin causes milk to be ejected through the nipple. Now we have the postnatal period. The first part, and the postnatal period's after birth. You have the neonatal period, which is to the end of the 4th week. Then infancy is the first year of life. Childhood occurs until puberty. Adolescence is puberty to adulthood. Adulthood is to old age, and then you have successance, which is old age to death. And aging is inevitable, and there are 2 forms of aging. Active, which means new things appear, new molecules appear, like lipofuscin, that helps you break down lipids. Autoimmunity may appear, which is a bad thing, because your immune system starts attacking yourself. And then also more apoptosis, which is more cell death. And aging is also a passive process. As you get older, structures start to break down and functions begin to slow. So most people, when we think of aging, we think of it as a passive process. or at least I do. The human lifespan, I believe the oldest human has lived to be 120 years old. In the United States, for men, the life expectancy is 75 years, and for women, it is 83 years. And of course, that is on average, no guarantees. And the last slide is showing the leading causes of death, and this is in both men and women, and that happens to be heart disease. And you can read through to figure these out. Anyway, this is the end of my session. I'm the only one attending, so I will end here. If there are any questions, which I don't believe there are. Yes. Let's see. I'll type in another question. Okay, and again, I think the entire audience is me, so I will end there. Thank you.